car wreck to a murder for hire plot.
And so much of it caught on home surveillance camera. What it reveals in all new 2020 starts right now.
It's one of the most complex investigations I've ever seen. Lust, greed, betrayal. This is where it all started.
This was it. What we initially thought was vehicle traveled down the embankment.
You could tell that they had gunshot wounds. William had been shot in the head, and Holly was shot.
She was also worried and scared. There were unidentified males going up to Miss Williams' apartment in the days leading up to the murders. We're not here for you. We're here for William.
She apparently already knew this was danger. This was somebody who was possibly a threat to her.
She is frantically walking through the apartment, pacing around, and then you see her take the bar and strong back the door on the inside.
This case is all over the place. Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, Hollywood. You've got blackmail, escorts, double murders, hitmen.
So it's obvious it was from someone that was hiding.
The person had used the name Agent 47, a name for an assassin in a video game.
The world's finest professional hitman.
And the absolute planning of this murder is something you will never have heard before.
This one is unlike any other homicide case I've ever worked on.
Nashville, there's something going on. All the time, every weekend. Nashville scene is interactive, so there's a lot of dancing, driving, listening to country music.
The city is just such a beautiful, magical place.
But on March 12th of 2020, just a few miles away from the downtown scene, in a much quieter part of town, a mystery with far-reaching implications was developing.
This was like a script out of a movie, just the way things were unfolding. And it was hard to believe.
Metro Nashville 911, what is the address of your emergency?
Somebody drove off the road and hit a tree.
A construction worker at the address of 497 Oldricker Boulevard discovered a white Acura sedan crashed down an embankment at that location.
Were you with the vehicle?
Yes, there's two people here.
Okay.
This kid really bad, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm sending the paramedics and the police department to help you now.
You come right down here to this spot, you look over the edge, and there you saw this vehicle.
The male subject was obviously deceased in the passenger floorboard of the car with his face down into the floorboard.
Just stuffed on the floor.
Yeah, and his feet were up in the ceiling of the car. And then behind him, in the back passenger seat, we see a female, obviously deceased, in the back seat, on the floorboard in between the back seat and the front seats.
Police determined that the victims are 33-year-old Holly Williams and 36-year-old Bill Landway. The two were well-known fixtures on the Nashville Strip.
Bill and Holly did used to come to my bar together a lot, and they always seemed to be having a good time. They were out together a lot when they were with each other.
They were always playing jokes when I was around with each other.
Holly grew up in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Her family says she just loved Christmas because it was the season of holly.
Life wasn't always great. Her parents divorced. She had a difficult relationship with her biological mother, and over time it was out and out estrangement. She lived with her father and stepmother.
Holly eventually made the move to the big city and met Marie Carroll. This is it, huh? This is the town. They both became skincare specialists and close friends. They made the most of the vibrant Nashville scene. How would you describe the city and your time that you spent here with Holly?
A lot of people come here to accomplish their dreams.
Your life with Holly here, what was it like?
We just love to spend time with friends. We love to watch football games together.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
It kind of reminded me of Marilyn Monroe. Several men would come by and light her cigarette. That's exactly how it was with Holly and being out with her.
People gravitated towards her. I mean, I did. I instantly thought she was amazing.
She was a good person. She would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it.
The second victim in the car, Bill Lanway, worked as an auto mechanic. He was often seen socializing with Holly and was known to have as much fun energy as his girlfriend.
Bill Lanway, life of the party, had this favorite watering hole he'd go to on the weekends where he knew everybody, kind of like a Cheers episode, you know. His childhood friends said, never a dull moment with him.
I grew up in Clarksville, Tennessee, and known Bill since he was probably 6 or 7 years old. Went to elementary, middle, and high school together. He's always been a staple of Nashville since I can remember. Living here, people go down to Broadway, Midtown, Gulch area, and Bill was always out in that scene too. He loved it.
At first, it looks as if Holly and Bill were the victims of a tragic car accident. But when the vehicle is pulled up from the embankment, police discover clear signs of foul play.
From the outside of the car crash, but when you looked inside, it wasn't a car crash. The passenger windows were broken out, but there was no glass around the vehicle anywhere to be seen. Typically on a traffic crash, you'd see glass on the inside and on the outside.
And when the bodies are removed from the car, police discover that Holly and Bill had been brutally shot to death.
Once we got the victims out of the car, we could tell that they had gunshot wounds to their heads and torsos. William had been shot in the head at least once, then Holly was shot in the head at least one time and shot in the torso on the left side at least one time.
For detectives, this criminal investigation is still a blank slate. They've got to figure out, why would anyone want this fun-loving, well-liked couple to be gunned down? They need to find out more about Bill and Holly. And they find out something that's a bit of a red flag about Bill Lanway.
You can see that there was a lot of history, like domestically. He had still had open court cases where he was out on bond for a domestic violence situation between her and him.
Holly's relationship with Bill was what I would say is toxic. I was very worried about her in the relationship. I know at times she wasn't happy, and she was also worried and scared.
This tempestuous relationship between Bill and Holly finally came to a head following a deeply disturbing incident involving Holly's beloved dog, Max.
Tell me about the dog.
She had texted me that she came home and found her dog dead. And she said, I know it was Bill. I know it was Bill.
When news breaks in Nashville about Holly and Bill's deaths, some of those close to Holly are sure they know who was behind the shooting.
I thought that Bill it was a murder-suicide. And I know a lot of Holly's friends felt the same way.
I mean, assumed that it would be a murder-suicide, especially with them found in her car like that.
You thought, no matter what, that this was Bill Lanway.
Yeah.
Holly was so afraid of Bill that she installed several cameras inside her apartment.
There's no way in the hell I'm going to buy an apartment knowing that you can disable my lock.
Did those cameras capture her killer?
Holly.
Detectives are trying to unravel the mystery of a young couple who were gunned down and found in a crashed car in a ravine. Once they take a deeper dive into the relationship between Bill Lanway and Holly Williams, they discover some disturbing information.
He had been arrested for assaulting her.
In Nashville's thriving nightlife scene, Bill Lanway was seen as life of the party, but friends say that was a mask for a much deeper, darker side of Bill Lanway.
Bill's dealt a really bad hand in life, and it's really tragic how his life started.
In November of 1986, when Bill Lanway was just a toddler, his father Lyle held Bill, his babysitter, and Bill's mother hostage for hours following a marital dispute. Afterwards, his father was arrested and taken to a hospital for psychiatric evaluation and care. Then, 6 days later, while on temporary release, Lyle Lanway violated a protective order and returned to the house. And right there, he stabbed his wife in front of young Bill.
His father had killed his mother on Thanksgiving Day in front of him. His dad went to prison for that.
The one fortunate thing was that he had a loving aunt and uncle who took him in and raised him and stayed very devoted to him.
Bill got voted best personality in high school. It's probably because Bill was just a funny guy.
He's very social. He always was, since he was younger, it seemed like.
What was he like in high school?
He was very friendly, everybody's friend. Yeah, he was older than me.
Dana Jones was 4 years younger than Bill in high school. The two began a romantic relationship just after Dana graduated.
We actually met at a party that was at his house. It was more of a fun type relationship, you know, we just hung out with friends, basically. And then I found out I was pregnant 6 months after dating him, so.
And what was his reaction when he found out that you're pregnant?
We were both excited. He said he had always wanted to be a father. This is her baby book that I tried to put together.
Little princess?
Yeah, oh, she wanted to be a princess.
For Bill Lanway, the future looked so bright, with a family of his own to nurture and care for. And then, fate would deliver a second horrific blow.
I know this is really uncomfortable. Can you tell me the story about Maddie then? And what happened?
She had flu-like symptoms for about 3 weeks. And that's the night that we found out she had cancer. I mean, there was nothing else they could do.
You knew she was gonna die.
Yeah.
What was Bill's reaction to all of this?
He was upset. I mean, he really was. He was devastated.
The cancer came back stronger and more aggressive than ever.
Lanway spoke out about his daughter's death in a documentary that he participated in to help cancer patients.
I felt like the whole world just came crashing down. Maddie actually battled cancer for 16 months. I hope one day I'll see my daughter again.
According to Dana, the tragic illness and death of their daughter changed Bill's personality and the relationship for the worse.
It was just pushing and arguing to start with. He would damage my property. He would pick a fight, and the day after the funeral, I had packed him a little box of some of her things, and that's when I told him never contact me again.
He never did.
He never did.
I think a part of the way he hid the emotions came from gaining relief by drinking or by partying.
By the time Bill met Holly at a music festival in Nashville in 2018, he had developed a reputation as a fun-loving man around town.
They seemed to click. They were bubbly, they loved to laugh. Everything seemed perfect. but it doesn't take long for the cracks to develop.
They had an on-again, off-again relationship where he was abusive towards her, both verbally and physically. According to these police reports from 2019, Holly claimed Bill punched her in the mouth and broke her windshield. Holly declined to press charges and refused assistance for domestic violence from the police. But in January 2020, Holly requested a restraining order against Bill, accusing him of covering her mouth, causing her to hyperventilate. It was during that same incident that she accused Bill of going into her apartment and taking her dog Max. The court date for this incident was pending at the time of their deaths.
Nobody knows if he stole the dog or just let the dog out, because she found the dog several days later on the side of the road, dead right over by her apartments.
Did Holly think that Bill killed the dog?
Oh, yeah.
She believes it. Friends say that Holly was so scared of Bill at this point that she installed security cameras.
So she had 3 cameras at her apartment. One of them was on the exterior looking at the walkway up to her door, and there were 2 on the inside.
One of the images found on one of the cameras installed in Holly's apartment, Bill Landway walking through her bedroom, looking around. It's really creepy because he's breaking into her home and she hasn't given him permission to be there.
Bill decoded the digital lock on Holly's apartment and got inside. She was in the process of getting additional protection for her apartment.
If there was any way I could get a schedule of traditional lock, then because the door lock wasn't changed, he was able to come in and assault me.
So it was very apparent that their relationship, it wasn't good, and it was suggested initially that it could have been a murder-suicide.
While some of those close to Holly are convinced Bill killed her and then took his own life, detectives are not so sure. They're finding clues at the accident scene that make them suspect that the car crash might have somehow been staged.
The car wasn't meant to be there. If it went straight down, it would go off a cliff maybe 50 to 60 feet tall with some trees, and it probably wouldn't be found for a very long time. There was no gun seen in the car, no cell phones, and no murder weapon.
And when the detectives take a deeper look at the footage captured on Holly's surveillance cameras, they see something that catches them by surprise.
There were 3 different men at different times that would approach the door and ask for Holly and ask him to talk to Holly.
Hey, Holly.
Who's there to talk to her?
When you take into consideration Bill's volatile relationship with Holly Williams, it made perfect sense that so many people believed that he was responsible for Holly's death. He shot her, then turned the gun on himself.
If you knew Bill, you couldn't possibly think that he could murder someone. But if you knew Holly, you had to think he killed her because you knew that she had reservations about their relationship based on domestic disputes. A lot of people didn't attend his funeral. As much sympathy as I wanted to have, it was hard for me to come to grips with going to a funeral of somebody who could have been a murderer.
Holly's funeral was also sparsely attended. It was such a horrific set of circumstances that people don't know how to act. They don't know how to behave.
I think I was in so much shock that I didn't want to see her that way or remember her that way.
While many of Holly and Bill's friends believe the motive behind the killings has also been laid to rest, detectives just aren't convinced it was a murder-suicide. But so far, there isn't a single obvious suspect.
At this point in the investigation, we didn't have anybody in mind that we thought would harm or want to harm William Landway or Holly Williams.
In the search for clues, detectives decide to take a closer look at the footage from those security cameras that Holly had set up in her apartment.
This is the Hillmead apartment complex, just right outside of Nashville. This is where Holly's apartment is.
So you found these cameras?
Yeah, it's something that you don't see a lot with investigations.
There are several hours of video, so we just start watching it. So I'm really concerned of what happened just before they died.
And what detectives suddenly see captured on those cameras takes them by surprise.
When we're watching the surveillance video and we see men approach her door, they're doing things to hide their identity. They're wearing long sleeve, they're wearing darker black clothing.
One of those individuals then tries to move the camera so that it's not capturing the action in front of Miss Williams's door. That attempt was really unsuccessful because the video still shows the two individuals knocking on her door. They say they wanted to speak with her.
Meanwhile, the camera inside the apartment shows Holly's reaction to the men at her door.
She is frantically walking through the apartment, pacing around. And then you see her take the bar and strong back the door on the inside. So if someone tried to force the door open, you would have a harder time getting inside.
She apparently already knew this was danger. This was somebody who was possibly a threat to her.
Right.
There's one guy that, as he approaches, the camera gets a pretty good look at his face. The other guy that's there, you can see his face, but he's got a huge beard, and it covers up a lot of his facial features.
So you got this video of these men that came up to this house where you knew that the victims had lived, but you didn't really have any idea exactly who they were.
Right.
To try to figure out the identity of these mysterious men showing up at Holly's door, detectives decide to do a much deeper dive into Holly's background and make another startling discovery.
Holly Williams, she was a licensed esthetician. We discovered that she had a second career, which was serving as an escort in Nashville and other cities as well.
When Holly advertised for her escort business, she used the name Layla Love. She didn't use her real name, which is common and smart. If she has a client, she may not want to have contact with this person outside of work. So you wouldn't want them to know your real name. You don't want them to be able to look up your address.
Holly started in the business when she was 18 or 19. She would be upfront about it, with the boyfriends. They would pay her like $20,000 for a weekend to go with them on vacation or whatever.
She would express the material benefits of being an escort, whether it's getting money or furniture or clothes, going shopping. So I think for her at the time, it was a lavish lifestyle in a way. But the dangers that came with it, she wanted to get away from.
Now, investigators are starting to think that Holly's profession as an escort could play into the identities of those strange guys caught on her home camera. So the next step is to gain access to Holly and Bill's digital devices.
We were very interested in that because of her line of work and the type of clients that she had, like high-end clients.
A third unidentified man came to the door. He was speaking to Miss Williams.
Hey, Holly.
This is about a client. We want to make sure you're safe.
All right, he's not here. Not just call him. He's got a couple questions to ask you.
The Nashville Police Department puts out an alert asking the public for help identifying the men, but get no leads.
Cops still don't know who those men are at Holly's door. It's still a mystery. But then, detectives uncover another very key detail. Someone by the name of Jimmy Green is not only texting Bill, But he's also trying to reach Holly on her personal and her escort phone.
And the startling revelation into the true identity of Jimmy Green would lay to rest that murder-suicide theory and introduce a whole new set of possible suspects into this investigation.
It's the biggest break in the case.
It was huge. We had something we could actually go on. This is the Hillmead apartment complex. This is where Holly's apartment is.
This is where it all started.
This was it. This is where you can see on camera the footage of the two men outside of her apartment knocking on the door.
But you didn't really have any idea exactly who they were.
Yeah, this is before we had any clue who anybody was or what they wanted.
To figure out who those men were, detectives decide they need to start looking through some phone records.
We're looking at call detail records of just before their death. Who is contacting them? Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it a cousin? Is it a family member? A friend? Who are these people that are contacting them?
They noticed a phone number that was on both Holly's and Williams' phone records, and that was interesting.
So this is the voice over IP number here, the one that he was using to try to mask his identity.
Detective Willover is suspicious about that number, a voice over IP telephone number, which works like any other number except it goes through the internet. Most of these internet phone numbers are purely legitimate, but Detective Willover knows that sometimes people use them because they don't have to reveal their true identity.
So it's obvious you knew that this phone call was from someone that was hiding.
Yes.
Did not want to be found.
Correct.
But good detectives can still find that identity. Willover subpoenas the telephone provider for the subscriber information behind that particular number, and what they get back is an email address, jimmygreen34@gmail.com.
jimmygreen34@gmail.com.
So that's all you know.
That's all we know.
Somebody that used the address.
Right.
So at that point, investigators did not know who Jimmy Green 34 was. They subpoenaed records for the email account associated with Jimmy Green 34.
They want to know, is this Jimmy Green even a real person's name? The information from that subpoena only adds to the mystery.
And one of the things that I found for the Jimmy Green 34 Gmail account was the person had used the name Agent 47.
You are Agent 47, the world's finest professional hitman.
Agent 47 is a moniker and a name for an assassin in a video game. I thought that was very interesting.
An assassin in a video game? But considering that Nashville detectives always thought that the murder of Bill and Holly had sort of hitman characteristics, it makes them wonder, did Jimmy Green 34 have anything to do with their murders?
Whoever it is, that voice-over internet phone line he is using leaves a trail, a list of distinct computer codes called IP addresses. And the detectives know they can follow it.
Every time they send a message, it logs their IP address. Every time they make a phone call, it logs their IP address. It's like an address to your house or the tag on your car. I just compared phone numbers that used all of those IP addresses. And it comes back one phone number.
What was that phone number?
Adam Carey.
Wow. So you identified who Jimmy Green 34 was?
Yes, Adam Carey is Jimmy Green 34.
Adam Carey is the real identity of Jimmy Green 34. It is the first actual name the investigation has uncovered, and things get even more interesting as they learn more about him.
Investigators learned that Adam Carey wasn't from Nashville, but he had an address in North Carolina, who was a former United States Marine with special operations training, who was working in the private security industry.
impersonating law enforcement.
Carey has a bit of a criminal history. In 2016, he had been pulled over for impersonating a police officer.
Come over here. I'm gonna sit you in the car.
And was caught possessing pipe bombs and other illegal weapons. He was convicted and served 4 months in prison.
I get the crazy idea that Adam Carey might have himself issued a driver's license out of North Carolina. And he might have a photo attached to that I might want to look at. This picture pops up, and it's clearly one of the guys from the video. It took a nanosecond. I just looked at it and I said, that's the guy. You wouldn't even need facial recognition software to know it was the guy. It's the biggest break in the case.
It was huge. We had something we could actually go on, someone's life that we could look into to see who he was associating with and who he knew.
Once we identified Adam Carey, then we started trying to connect him to anybody else who was involved in all this.
It would take a long time, but investigators would eventually figure out that someone had hired Adam Carey in the first place. That person is a critical new name in the developing case, Brian Brockway.
Brian Brockway was also a former Marine.
Brian had spent several years overseas.
In Iraq and Afghanistan.
In the Middle East, yeah.
Brian Brockway's brother, Chad, told me that after he left the Marines, Brian did some top-level security work for the government. So he was there to protect extremely important high-end people from the United States.
And assets, that's correct.
A really strange picture is starting to develop. Brockway and Carey both have elite military backgrounds. Both work in private security, and now both are interested in Holly and Bill.
So it was a real task to put together why these individuals had come to Nashville, how they knew each other, how they were connected, and then figure out what that all meant.
It's a mystery. What is going on? Well, investigators eventually make a huge breakthrough in the case after more digital sleuthing. They're able to unearth this critical document hidden on the cloud that sounds like something out of a spy novel. It's a military-style document with a bizarre-sounding name, the Tennessee Sitrep.
Sitrep refers to a situation report, a military term for what's going on the ground. It illustrated there were people who were getting paid to be in Nashville to look for Holly and William, and it was sent to essentially ask for further instructions.
It turns out that mysterious document was sent to another name on the growing list of people, a man by the name of Gil Peled. And just like Carey and Brockway, Gil Peled is not from Nashville either. He's located in Austin, Texas. But who is Gil Peled? What's he got to do with all of this? And why on earth is he standing next to Charlie Sheen? The investigation into exactly who was behind the brutal murders of Holly Williams and Bill Lanway now shifts nearly 900 miles to the west, to Austin, Texas. So the detectives know a man here named Gilad Peled, also known as Gil, who got this report about the surveillance going on in Nashville, and they just want to know more about it.
God, I've known Gil for probably 20 years. He's just a good, warm-hearted person.
Maybe 6 foot tall, he's dark complected, he definitely works out.
Oh, Gil, he is something. He's very handsome, and he would smile. He could light up the room.
Many people, even if they met him, didn't know much about him. He was still kind of an unknown entity in the Austin area.
I believe he was born in Israel. Went through military there like everybody does.
he had said that he was with the Mossad as part of the IDF and, you know, he was special forces.
Do you believe it?
I did at the time.
The Mossad is Israel's elite intelligence branch. Remember, that report sent to Gil about what was going on in Nashville involved people who had military and intelligence backgrounds themselves.
Paulette first comes to the United States back in 1999. And his story is he came with only $500 to his name. He chooses Southern California, and there he sets out to turn all that experience in military into a career in private security.
He looked the part, he acted the part, he fit every aspect of what you would think of when you think of a bodyguard or a protective security person.
As Khaled is building his life in California, he meets a woman named Jana who is working in a salon and is an accomplished hairstylist.
So I love the girl parties and girls getting their colors with their friends, color cuts, all that.
Jana worked in a salon that specialized in blondes. They're in Manhattan Beach. She's a superstar.
So if you want awesome blonde hair, then she was the one to go to.
She's great.
That was a woman that he ended up marrying and still married till today and having two wonderful kids.
Meantime, Gil's private security work is taking off. Figures out a way to move into the world of celebrities, Hollywood.
One of Paulette's clients was Charlie Sheen.
Gil was with him, protecting him all the time, pulling him out of the fire before it got out of control.
You know, following someone around and, clearing areas and making sure that, the subject is safe and protected.
According to reports, in 2014, Sheen fires Paulette, part of a number of staffing changes to Sheen's inner circle. It's unclear exactly what happened, but regardless, soon after, Paulette and his wife Jana leave Southern California entirely and move to Austin, Texas.
I really think the move was to have a better surroundings for his wife and kids.
It was a change of scenery, maybe a new start. His parents, I believe, and his brother lived there.
In Austin, he sets up his own security company, Spear Tip, and helps his wife start a hair salon called Level 12.
When I heard the name Level 12, I was like, bing, because what it means is the highest level of blonde. I love this name.
I love being with people and I love clients, and they really become part of your little family.
But for whatever reason, the security business isn't really taking off. And by March of 2020, when COVID hits, well, Gil Paulette is in some trouble.
He appeared to be doing very little of the work that he actually wanted to be doing.
His business was not doing very well. He was in a real financial bind.
And that's when a fateful relationship is born. A local car dealership is having a problem with homeless people on the lot. Gil Paulette begins a consulting arrangement to handle that issue.
He was excited to have had a client that was a business, that maybe he could get more work out of, like a client that had a reoccurring business.
The Mon name was well known in Austin.
Charles Montoyota. Let's be friends.
You know the name because of commercials that have rolled on local television for decades in Austin.
Mon Toyota was really a fixture business in the Austin community.
Eric Mon managed Mon Toyota. The Mon family had become very wealthy because of the dealership.
Eric Mon and Gil Paulette are about to cross paths, and when they do, it will eventually lead to murder.
But how on earth are a rich auto dealer and a security consultant from his business in Austin linked to that murder in Nashville?
This was like a scene out of a movie. It was hard to believe. It was surreal.
No one could have guessed just how twisted this story would be. You start with the murder of two young people in Nashville.
It's rare that we have audio from an actual kidnapping and murder.
You can hear the car starting, and then you hear the glass breaking, a man screaming, and a woman screaming.
Through the passenger side window, they shot him from that side?
What sounds like a living nightmare.
This indictment read something like a movie script. Sexual indiscretions with violence and a murder for hire plot.
This is the first description of the details of what happened that night.
Some of the problems that we ran into last night. We had to take him at the same time, dude.
And the absolute planning of this murder is something you will never have heard before.
We got a problem with one of the shooters in Nashville.
I'll pay the guy $25,000, but I think it needs to go away after that.
So we need to take care of him?
Do you regret it because you just murdered someone? Or do you regret it because you were caught?
Metro Nashville 911. What is the address of your emergency?
Somebody drove off the road and hit a tree.
2 bodies were recovered from a car down an embankment outside of Nashville.
The victims' names are Holly Williams and Bill Landway.
But when you looked inside, it wasn't a car crash.
It was a murder. A murder with some tantalizing clues. Suspicious men caught on home security video.
Outside of the victim's apartment, apparently surveilling the house.
But no one could figure it out. Who would want to harm this couple and why?
This one is unlike any other homicide case I've ever worked on.
Investigators learned those men in Nashville are linked to a security consultant in Austin, Texas. And that security consultant is working for a very rich man named Eric Mond, a car dealer whose grandfather Charles started the business way back in the 50s.
If you live in Austin, you know the name because of commercials that have rolled on local television for decades.
You hurry to Charles Mond Toyota and get our best savings on our best selection of barely driven Toyotas.
The name became synonymous with car buying in Austin.
The name was out there all the time.
So hurry to Austin's #1 volume sales dealer, Charles Mond Toyota.
The family is a really nice family.
Anita Ashton belongs to the Austin Country Club, where Eric and his family have been members for years.
The men, I know, they play golf with him.
So he's a hell of a lot of fun and very popular at the club.
Staff all loved him because he tipped with $100 bills.
Eric Mond is wealthy. His family lived in a 7,000 square foot home that was valued at about $5 million and had 10 bathrooms.
For years, Mond had enjoyed the good life in Austin with his wife and 2 kids. But in early 2020, that all changes. Mond goes to visit his son, who is attending college in Nashville. And while he's there, he makes an appointment to see an escort.
What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I don't think that's being a very good dad.
That escort turns out to be none other than Layla Love, whose real name was Holly Williams, and their rendezvous would lead to everything that followed.
There were email and text communications between him and Holly about meeting for an encounter. He had stayed at a hotel in downtown Nashville, and they met at the bar of this hotel. The fact that he had had this affair with an escort was something he wanted to keep private.
But it turns out that his secret is out. Investigators say that out of the blue, on March 1st of 2020, Mond gets a mysterious anonymous text message.
It was a message asking Eric Mond for a sum of money in order to protect Eric Mond's family from finding out about this relationship.
The extorter was asking for $25,000.
Eric Mond was really concerned about those facts being revealed, not just to his family, but also because of his position as a decently high-profile figure in the Austin area.
And that's where Gil Paulette enters the picture. Now remember, Paulette has been doing security consulting for Mon Toyota. Eric Mon learns that Paulette has experience dealing with extortion, so he asks for his help.
Mr. Mon showed Mr. Paulette the extortion texts on Mr. Mon's phone. And Mr. Paulette said to Mr. Mon that they should go to the police. Mr. Mon said that they were not going to the police.
So Paulette then sets out to figure it out. Who is actually sending that extortion threat? And what is the real identity of the woman Mon knew only as an escort named Layla Love? Well, to do this, Gil reaches out to that man you may remember, Brian Brockway. He was a former Marine, highly skilled in surveillance and intelligence, and now working in the private security world.
Brian Brockway has extensive history in the military. He knows a lot of different contacts, a lot of people who are skilled in this type of work.
To find out who Layla Love really is, Paulette also contacts Brian Brockway's brother, Chad, who had his own intelligence background and worked in private security. But the story Gil tells him isn't entirely truthful.
Gil began to explain to me he had been retained by a family in Nashville who their daughter was missing and that she worked as an escort.
So you learned her real name, Holly Williams.
We learned her real name, we issued our report, and then that was the end of it.
And now, with that information his brother Chad has gathered, Brian Brockway then hires Adam Carey, that private security man from North Carolina with military training. He then sends Carey, along with two other operatives, to Nashville to try to find out what they can in person.
And that's how Adam Carey and the others end up recorded on those security cameras at Holly's front door.
Their first goal was to figure out where Miss Williams lived, if she was living with anybody.
The team is able to determine that the person making those extortion threats to Eric Mond was none other than Bill Lanway, Holly's volatile on and off again boyfriend.
William had logged into her account that she used to contact and taken screenshots of the list.
Investigators say there is no evidence Holly knew what Bill was up to. Brian Brockway himself arrives in Nashville just as things hit a boiling point. March 11th, when Lanway actually makes a phone call to Mond at his home.
He was concerned that his wife could have answered the phone. And the threat of Eric Mond's family finding out about this secret was significantly increased.
Soon after, those home security cameras record Holly and Bill leaving her apartment. And the question is, what exactly happened next? It's March of 2020, and there have been mysterious figures lurking outside Holly Williams' apartment in Nashville, Tennessee. These men were sent there by security consultant Gil Paulette, who was hired by Texas multimillionaire Eric Mond.
So far, despite their efforts, the operation has not been fruitful.
The individuals on the ground had had no success, and then on March 11th, William Lanway called Eric Mond's house, and that's when everything changed. Eric Mond was upset. He was freaking out. The situation had gotten out of his control.
This was really significant to Eric Mond because he was concerned that his wife could have answered the phone.
According to investigators, that March 11th phone call launched a deadly plan. Authorities say soon after, Brian Brockway told Gil Paulette that he and Adam Carey would murder Bill and Holly for $60,000 each.
Gilad Paulette is relaying that information directly to Eric Mond, and according to Gilad Paulette, he jumped on the idea of having a murder committed.
Earlier that day, Brockway had flown to Nashville to join Carey on the ground. At this point, the two other men on the surveillance team had already left, having no idea about the alleged murder for hire plot. By the night of March 12th, the deadly operation was underway.
On the security video of Holly Williams' apartment door from the night of March 12th around 11:40, you can see the victims walking out of camera's view.
Holly walks out of her apartment and goes off camera. William goes back in briefly to the apartment to get something, and then he comes back out.
And into what sounds like a living nightmare.
This is not far from her front door, and the door camera picked up the audio of what happened in the parking lot.
This graphic audio may be difficult for some to hear.
You can hear the car starting, and then you hear gunshots, glass breaking, a man screaming, and a woman screaming.
Seconds later, you can hear her screams get quieter and quieter, and then we don't hear anything else.
Detectives believe that the shooters ambushed Holly and Bill while they were in Holly's car. Incredibly, no neighbors reported hearing gunshots. They shot Will through the passenger side window. They shot him from that side.
We believe that the suspect opened the door and began firing upon Will. And while he was firing at Will, he had struck Holly in the chest.
Authorities say the suspects then drove the victims to another location about 3 miles away.
So this would have been the route to the dump site or the construction site where we located them.
Investigators say surveillance video from this nearby gas station captured Holly's white Acura being driven by one of the alleged hitmen. It's trailing a black car where cops say the other suspect is behind the wheel. There's 2 cars in a row.
Right, Holly's vehicle was following that dark-colored sedan. And here we are at the last little stretch. We're getting ready to pull into the construction site here. And this is where they would have stopped the car, put the car in neutral. The vehicle veered off to the right here and down this embankment to your right and into a tree. When we discovered the car was in drive. So somebody pumped the gear and let it roll.
So the engine was running?
Yes.
Here's what the Nashville police know at this point. They know who Adam Carey is. They know who Eric Mond is. And they know that this Eric Mond in Austin may be the victim of an extortion attempt, possibly by Bill Lanway. Now, because these crimes are ostensibly interstate, it's time to call in the FBI.
Enter FBI Special Agent David Somm, who starts by following the money.
We were looking at Eric Mond and his financial transactions. And we determined that all of a sudden he makes a very large financial wire to Gilad Peled on the day of the homicide.
How much was that?
$150,000.
Investigators are now working with a motive, a theory of extortion, and they have a money trail. But what they really need is a confession. You had smoke, but you didn't have any smoking gun.
Correct. I would have to transition from determining through circumstantial evidence who the probable people were to now being able to determine what they did when they were there.
In their own words.
In their own words.
Special Agent Somm has a clever idea. He wants to go to one of the 2 guys who dropped out of the original surveillance plan.
He left before the homicides. He had no idea that anything like that was going to go on.
So Special Agent Somm convinces this man to go undercover, to see if he can get the suspected killers to incriminate themselves.
He made the decision that it's in the best interest, everyone involved, to assist.
He wanted it.
He did.
The idea was, let's send in this person with the proposal that he has a new murder-for-hire plan.
2020 has agreed to alter the voice of the undercover operative. He first calls Adam Carey.
What's up, man?
We're just gonna kind of run you through this little thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Adam Carey says that he's willing to participate, that the cost is $60,000 per shooter per victim.
I would do 50, no less than 50, 60K per each of us.
The tools that you would use, all the things that you would need to commit a murder for hire.
Find those weak spots, bring gloves, subcutaneous injections. If you're gonna do a long shot, let's say 50 yards, you could simply get a 22 long rifle.
It's startling to hear those details, but investigators want more. So they decide to send the undercover operative to meet in person with Brian Brockway in Austin.
The undercover met with Brian Brockway at a restaurant bar area, and the beginning part of that conversation is guarded. It wasn't until Brian Brockway and the undercover went into Brian Brockway's car where we really got clear information.
This time, prosecutors and investigators just can't believe what is revealed. Brockway describes the ambush in Nashville.
Some of the problems that we ran into last time is we had to take him at the same time, dude. I took the big dude, he's a fighter, man. He caught my hand in the door, but I still got him.
This is the first description of the details of what happened that night. Yes.
He admitted to it right there in the recording.
Finally, investigators feel like they've got enough. It's time to round up the suspects. But in order to catch Eric Mond, there's just one more clever ruse in store.
Eric Mond is driving back from his hunting resort to home, and that's when the phone call was made.
I'll pay the guy $25,000. Honestly, I think I'd rather take care of it personally.
December 2021. Almost 2 years after the murders of William Landway and Holly Williams, Eric Mond posts an intriguing 5-star review of Gil Poulet's security company. SpearTip is very professional, and on top of it, they get the job done in an expedited time. Couldn't imagine using anyone else. Okay, what? I mean, talk about audacity.
A few days later, federal prosecutors and the FBI launch a highly orchestrated plan to arrest the 4 men they believe are responsible in the Nashville murders of Bill Landway and Holly Williams.
4 defendants in 3 different states that needed to be arrested within a couple hours of each other.
4 o'clock in the morning near Richland, North Carolina, Adam Carey was arrested by a specialized tactical team. Brian Brockway was then arrested in San Diego.
At the time of his arrest, Brian Brockway was attending his son's Marine Corps boot camp graduation, along with his brother Chad and his family.
I saw that they pulled my brother aside. I saw that they had my brother in handcuffs and were taking him to a police car and putting him in the back of the car. We're trying to figure out what happened, what's going on.
Next up, Gil Poulet, the point person with the alleged boss. He was returning from a security conference in Las Vegas.
We knew he was arriving at the airport that day, and that's where we arrested him. We had not arrested Eric Mond yet. We need to know whether Eric Mond had knowledge of the homicides, whether he was part of the conspiracy. And again, we felt the only way to do that was to do a recording between Gilad Poulet and Eric Mond.
First, they needed to convince Gil Poulet to help nab their biggest target, Eric Mond.
The last piece of the puzzle at that point was Gilad Poulet, getting him to make the phone call with Eric Mond, so that now we could determine what Eric Mond's knowledge of the homicides was.
Tell me how it was you were able to get Poulet to cooperate on this.
He learned how much evidence we had against him. Explained to him that regardless of what you do at this point, you're getting arrested. But what you could potentially do is assist us in making the phone call.
At the time, Eric Mond was driving back from a hunting retreat in Texas, and FBI was surveilling him.
Eric Mond was driving with a friend, and he gets a call from Gilad Poulet. He pulls over to the side of the road because he knows that he needs to speak privately. You could hear a pin drop in the room because the tension was palpable.
The idea was that Gil Peled would call Eric and tell him that one of the shooters from Nashville was back and that he wanted $25,000 from Eric Mond to keep quiet, basically.
We got a problem with one of the shooters in Nashville.
Uh-huh.
He found out that you were the client that paid for this, for the job.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't say, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. He just said, uh-huh.
But then he takes it further and he talks about, what he wants to do about this, the solution, which is another homicide.
I'll pay the guy $25,000, but I think it needs to go away after that.
So we need to take care of him?
He did a solid for me, and I appreciate him for that. But I just want to make sure it's, in 6 months down the road, he's not going to pop back up. Honestly, I think I'd rather take care of it permanently, and then I'll just run 150 through Spirit Tip, like we did last time.
It showed his understanding of what happened in Nashville, and it also cut against any kind of argument that Eric Mond didn't want this murder to happen.
Immediately after Gil and Mon hung up, and I said, take him down.
Now, almost immediately after that call is recorded, Mond continues to drive. He's pulled over by Texas state troopers, ends up right about here. They're ordering him to get out of the vehicle. Just then, a bunch of federal agents surround it all, and then they tell him to get out, they cuff him, and they take him off to custody.
Federal investigators say a prominent Austin auto executive orchestrated a $1 million hit job.
The news of Mond's arrest hits Austin like a bombshell.
Senior reporter Tanya Flahetsky spent the day unraveling the allegations in this case.
Ashley, this murder for hire plot led to the arrest of 4 men across the country, but of course here in Austin, a prominent name associated with that plot is Eric Charles Mond.
This indictment read something like a movie script, sexual indiscretions with violence and a murder for hire plot. And then when you put the name Mond at the top of all of those details, the story spread like wildfire.
As prosecutors gear up for the federal trial of the 4 men in Nashville, there's another shocking twist. Gil Peled makes a deal. He pleads guilty to murder for hire, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and kidnapping resulting in death. He agrees to testify against his alleged co-conspirators. But will this testimony help make the prosecution's case or sink it?
One of the defense arguments was that Gilad Peled had somehow bamboozled Eric Mond into this whole situation.
I think Gil would have done anything he needed to do to save himself.
On November 3rd of 2023, the trial of Eric Mond, Brian Brockway, and Adam Carey began in Nashville, Tennessee federal court.
The defendants were charged with conspiracy to commit murder for hire with death resulting, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and then kidnapping with death resulting.
All 3 of the co-defendants pled not guilty. I was one of the only members of the media who was there from start to finish. Of all the cases I think I've covered, this ranks as one of the most complex. You had so many defendants. Each defendant had his own defense team. Robert McGuire has to figure out a way to thread the needle so that jury can make the right decision.
When I gave the opening statement, I wanted to make sure that I was clear that Eric Mond had a problem and he solved it with murder. We felt very strongly that the recordings of the defendants were going to tell the jury what really happened.
During the trial, federal prosecutors wanted the jury to see that home surveillance that showed Carey right outside of Holly's door.
What do you think was in their mind when they realized that now they're on trial, that there was a camera that shot Carrie's face.
They're probably kicking themselves right now.
FBI Special Agent David Somm told the jury about the undercover sting operations that he designed and orchestrated, which eventually broke the case open.
I believe that was the only way to really understand what happened in Nashville.
On that undercover audio tape, you can clearly hear Brian Brockway talking, almost bragging to the undercover informant.
I took the big duties of fighter, man. Caught my hand in the door. When he did, it bent the entire frame of the door.
Everything that I interpreted from the wiretap was that he was bragging. He was attempting to create his own business line, run his own company. And I think in this particular case, he probably said things that were not true.
That tape was corroborated by much of the evidence found in the case.
When you have the undercover recordings of the defendant's words themselves, there is no other type of evidence that is as compelling as that.
Now, the man I'm waiting to hear from is the prosecution's star witness, Gil Paulette. Remember, he's the guy who, according to prosecutors, put all of this together.
I argued to the jury that, yes, Gil Paulette is a liar and a profiteer, but in a criminal conspiracy, the only witnesses are criminals. Gil Paulette is a lot of things, and ultimately, he did a very terrible thing, and he tried as hard as he could to make up for it. And that's what he testified to the jury. He knew he had done wrong, and all he had left was the truth.
Gil Paulette told a bit of a sob story to the jury that he was down and out. COVID had basically sunk his security business. He had 2 children to feed and a wife. So money was a motivation to get involved. He really needed money.
But perhaps the part of the prosecution's case that had the most impact was when they played for the jury that footage of Bill and Holly being shot.
When prosecutors played that footage of the murder of Bill and Holly, everyone sat in stunned silence.
That footage is some of the most difficult footage I have had to look at and listen to as a prosecutor. It's rare that we have audio from an actual kidnapping and murder.
Prosecutors also played another key piece of audio evidence for the jury. That undercover tape of Brian Brockway apparently talking about how Holly was killed.
Some of the problems that we ran into last time is we had to take him at the same time, dude.
It confirms everyone's worst fear is that Holly was not dead when they drove away from her apartment. She was alive, injured, and in a state of terror when they reached that dump site.
On the recording, Brockway says Adam Carey was the one who then shot Holly to death.
She wound up still breathing. He finished it in the back seat. And he got my respect. I totally got my respect for that. He was one of the guys with females. Now you'll probably her.
We asked the jury to imagine what it must have been like for Holly Williams in the moments before she died.
And prosecutors are not done. They're going to play another piece of video for the jury. Eric Maughn's reaction to hearing those chilling shots and screams.
What you're gonna hear is outside Holly's apartment. Okay, this is how it went down.
But when it's the defense's turn, well, they have some video of their own to show the jury. And they use it to call into question whether Holly's real killer has been identified. The jury has just heard exactly how Holly and Bill were shot outside of her apartment. Now, the prosecution shows the jury just how Eric Mond reacted to that video during his interrogation with FBI Special Agent David Song.
I want you to understand what we're talking about here. What you're going to hear is this is outside Holly's apartment. Okay, this is how it went down. This is about the time she's getting shot, he's getting shot. This is someone I think you cared about. I wanted to get him to understand the gravity of the situation. I wanted to see if he had a reaction.
Do you think he gave you any sense of regret of what he had done?
I would hope at some level he might, but the question is, why does he regret it? You know, do you regret it because you just murdered someone? Or do you regret it because you were caught?
When it's time for the defense's case, they go right after the prosecution's star witness, saying Gil Paulette can't be trusted, and he's lying about the murder plot to save his own skin.
The defense hammered Paulette on cross-examination, pointing out that he lied about being a former Israeli intelligence agent and that he initially lied to the FBI by downplaying his involvement in the murder-for-hire plot. The defense also accused him of getting a sweetheart sentencing deal in exchange for his testimony.
His sentence will ultimately be determined by the judge. So Mr. Paulette doesn't know what sentence he's going to receive from the judge, and neither do I.
All arrows point to Gil, right? Gil was brought in by the FBI. He was pressured, he was threatened, and he was essentially given no other option than to cooperate.
The defense calls Brian Brockway's brother Chad to the stand. Remember, Paulette had asked him to do an initial background check on Holly and Bill.
Chad testifies that Paulette lied to him from the get-go. Remember, he says Paulette told him the case actually involved a client whose daughter was a victim of sex trafficking and was trapped in the escort business. When did you realize this was not anything about sex trafficking?
When we read the indictment. Gil Paulette cried on the stand, and he left all of them out to dry to save himself.
During the trial, the defense brought forward a couple of ideas to try to plant seeds of doubt in the jurors. They tried to say that what happened in Nashville happened outside of the knowledge of Eric Mond.
The defense tried to cast doubt on that undercover phone call between Mond and Paulette, saying there was no clear admission of guilt.
We got a problem with one of the shooters in Nashville. So we need to take care of him?
He did a solid for me, and I appreciate him for that. But I just want to make sure he's not going to pop back up.
But Brooks got her own response to that. She says Mond's words speak for themselves.
He talked about how it wasn't really about the money for him, and he wanted to take care of the problem permanently.
When the jury listened to that call, we argued that you knew who was the boss and who was the help.
The defense wants the jury to consider that there could be another explanation for the murders.
Jurors are shown that video of Holly setting up security cameras in her apartment. Remember, she installed those cameras to protect herself from her on and off again boyfriend, Bill Lanway.
There was only one opposite schedule of traditional dental law, and because the door lock was extended, they would come in and assault me.
Jurors are shown video of Bill caught on camera entering Holly's apartment and looking for her in her bedroom. But investigators had eliminated Bill as a possible suspect based on the evidence, which they say confirmed that he was a victim of the murder-for-hire plot.
It looked like a mob job. There was no gun to be seen in the car.
The defense raises another possibility. Perhaps one of Holly's clients might have been responsible for the killings, implying that that's what got her killed, not Eric Mond, essentially blaming the victim. And that did not sit well at all with prosecutor Robert McGuire, who angrily protested in court.
I'm passionate in trial. The defense has a job to do, and I respect it, but I didn't want the jury to receive an imperfect picture of who Holly Williams was.
So the defense closing arguments were interesting because you had 3 different defendants and different attorneys stating their case to the jury. But there are some consistent themes here. You cannot trust star witness Gil Paulette. He was the one who capitalized the most on this by receiving, in the end, a total of $905,000. He was the main guy.
Through the course of the trial, I actually started feeling a lot better about what the verdict was going to be.
People closely following this case wondered if Eric Maughan's defense team was going to be able to pull off an acquittal.
After a 14-day trial, the prosecution calling 20 witnesses and using 200 exhibits to make its case, it finally goes to the jury. And the feeling in the courtroom was that, well, it could go either way.
I think you're always worried when the case goes to the jury. You're always nervous. Always.
Three years and 8 months after Holly Williams and Bill Lanway were found brutally gunned down in Nashville, there's finally a verdict in their murder case.
I've had over 100 jury trials, and my heart is always beating out of my chest when the jury is about to announce their verdict.
After about 7 hours of deliberation, the jury found Maughan guilty of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, but not guilty of kidnapping, resulting in death.
District Judge William Campbell dismissed the conspiracy to commit kidnapping charge against Maughan at trial, finding there was insufficient evidence to support it.
Then they went on to Brian Brockway and Adam Carey, and they were both found guilty of all 3 counts that they were charged with.
When that verdict came back as it did, it was definitely a little bit of a shock to all of us. There's no way possible that my brother is guilty of the charges that they have brought against him.
In this investigation, and the motivation was greed, plain and simple. And another motivation we had is knowing that someone with so much money and so much power, they could just write a check and expect something just to go away.
Maughan's defense team sent 2020 this statement saying Eric Maughan is not guilty of the charges in the indictment. Mr. Maughan and counsel intend to pursue appeals on the remaining charge for which the jury returned a guilty verdict. Attorneys for Adam Carey and Brian Brockway declined comment.
The families, both families, they didn't deserve this tragedy and this trauma for both of their loved ones being killed the way they were killed.
Bill definitely had his demons, traumatic situations, but he was a guy that tried to push through everything.
Bill Lanway, through his entire life, he was just met with tragedy after tragedy. He's not innocent in all of this, but yet he didn't deserve what happened to him.
If you think about Bill's whole life full circle, one of the first memories of his life is probably trying to protect his mother and his father. And the last living moments of his life were trying to protect his girlfriend from a murderer.
Holly was a victim of circumstance. The evidence that we presented at the trial was that Holly did not know anything about this extortion plan.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Many people see Holly Williams as a woman who was repeatedly victimized and victimized at the end of her life.
I wanted to protect her because I felt like I saw some pain in her.
It is this beautiful young lady's birthday today.
And just seeing how sweet she was and just quiet, I just knew the world can be harsh towards people like her.
You know, there are so many layers to this mystery, and when Gil Paulette is sentenced this June, the judge will take into consideration his cooperation during the trial.
And while there's no sentencing date yet set for the three, Eric Mond, Adam Carey, and Brian Brockway, they're all facing mandatory life sentences. That's our program for tonight. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night. Stunning video and an emotional wife in the minutes after her military husband is gunned down.
But with so much captured on tape, why can't police crack the case? An all-new 2020 begins right now.
We got something else now? Yeah, shooting. Guy on the ground.
I saw Sergeant Tyrone Hassel laying on the ground next to his pickup truck with a large amount of blood, with his wife had grasped onto him, hysterical.
Hey, back up!
Breaking right now, a U.S. military member home for the holidays has been found dead.
He leaves the door, comes down the steps, and boom, he's shot right here.
I could see his eyes.
You knew he was gone.
Yeah. Why is this happening to us?
This was not a drive-by. This was up close and personal.
If it's up close and personal like that, it usually means that the problem is up close and personal.
We obviously are struggling with some leads right now. We don't have a whole lot going on. So we're trying to still piece it together.
What in the world had just happened?
No one would believe the answer when they finally got it.
What's the address of the emergency? 911.
I need help. My husband.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
I need help. I need help. My husband was shot. I need help.
So a 911 call came in just around 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve of 2018. And Kamaya Hassel is the one that called the 911. She is the wife of Sergeant Hassel.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
My husband bought him some food and he left out and me and my son were eating and I just heard gunshots. And I put myself in the room and I came outside and my husband was on the ground.
Tyrone Hassel III. He was a sergeant in the Army. He was back on block leave from Fort Stewart in Georgia, visiting his family with his wife and his kid for the Christmas leave.
I was proud. He went through the rankings pretty fast. He made sergeant pretty quick, and a lot of people said it was kind of hard to do.
The Army is also where Sergeant Hassel found love. His wife Kamaya, a fellow soldier. Together, they have a baby boy. All three of them are here in Benton Harbor, Michigan, celebrating the new year.
My name is Sergeant Mike Lanier, the St. Joe Township Police Department. December 31st, 2018, I was actually on my normal patrol duties that night. I heard dispatch of a subject had been shot.
Target call in St. Joe Township for a shooting.
I actually broke off my traffic stop immediately and proceeded.
I gotta go, okay?
To the address on Colfax.
Your husband's outside? Okay, stay on the line with me. Ma'am, take a deep breath. How many shots did you hear, ma'am? Ma'am?
Multiple officers have already been dispatched to the scene, including Officer Jeremy Peppers.
My partner informed us that we had an emergency call for a shooting that it just happened.
You got something else now? Yeah, shooting. Guy on the ground. Are you kidding me? That dart's going fast.
Did you see anybody around? Ma'am? Okay. You didn't see anyone? Okay. Ma'am? Hello? Ma'am, take a deep breath with me, okay?
When I arrived on scene, I arrived with numerous other officers, and also an ambulance was backing into the driveway. I saw the subject, who was later identified as Sergeant Tyrone Hassel, laying on the ground next to his pickup truck with a large amount of blood, with his wife had grasped onto him, hysterical.
I know. Well, let me get in there, man, okay? Let us get in there, hon, okay?
We obtained hours and hours of police body camera footage, and every officer on the scene that night had their cameras rolling. And you can see it all unfolding in real time. It was absolute chaos at first.
It is chaotic, but we have to control that chaos.
Get these people back.
The next thing you hear is that something's gone wrong.
Yeah, my phone rang, and it was Kamaya, and I couldn't really understand what she was saying. She's like, "Could you come home, and I'm like, calm down, I can't hear you, what are you saying? And she was like, Ty got shot.
When did he get shot at? Who is it? You know who he is? This Tyrone Hassel III.
We were lifting the gurney onto the back of the ambulance, and as I stepped back, she's kind of going past me and trying to climb into the ambulance.
Hey, back up! Whoa.
Because of that, I just focused on her and kind of pulled her away from that situation. I think I ended up kind of in the front yard.
Ma'am, you gotta come out here with us, okay?
And just standing there talking with her, and I was, at that point, I was starting to investigate.
We gotta figure out what happened, but you're gonna be in the way in there, okay? So
I was trying to calm her down at the same time, I was getting information on what happened. She didn't have a whole lot. She knew that he'd been at a party with some family, and that he was bringing her some food because she had stayed home with their son at Tyrone Sr.'s house there.
We're just visiting Mrs. Dad's house.
Okay.
We're in Georgia. We're in the military.
She was definitely visibly upset for me to try to calm her down and get a good statement from her on what she knew.
the food was outside? Like he stepped outside to get the food?
No, the food was in the house. He was leaving.
Where were you at when this happened?
In the living room.
We gotta collect some evidence and find out what the hell's going on here, okay?
My grandson is probably there by himself.
Okay, we'll go. I'll go take care of that for you if he is. We'll get you in there, okay?
Okay.
Bye.
Standing near the doorway as the drama unfolds is the couple's infant son.
Let's go clear this house real quick. There might be a baby. They're showcases, guys. Just be careful.
I don't know how much he watched, but during the chaos of taking care of Sergeant Hassel and all the cops, yeah, he was watching it. And when you have to go take him out of there, it was difficult.
Okay, buddy. Okay, come here, buddy. I won't hurt you, okay?
I'll probably never forget that. He was probably a year and a half old at the time, total innocent person there. And you have to go and get him out, but you also have to kick into dad mode. So he is comfortable enough to come to me so I can pick him up, take him out to his grandpa.
Come on. I got you, bud. Come on. Okay. There, boy. There you go.
I think about that a lot. I think about the little guy, Tyrone Hassel IV.
Do you want to see he can sit in my car with him or whatever?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult parts of working that scene.
The sergeant has a faint pulse as the ambulance heads to the hospital. Unbelievably, it's the same hospital where Ashanti Hassel, Tyrone's stepmom, is working the late shift.
They came through the back doors
of the emergency room, and I seen one of our paramedics actually on top of him doing compressions, and they were coming toward me, and I could see his face and how he was turned to the side, and I could see his eyes.
You knew he was gone?
Yeah, I knew because I see it too much not to know. Dr. Hammer walked out and he just stood there for a second. And the only thing that I heard him say was that we actually worked on him longer than we usually do, dear. And he was like, I'm sorry. And for a second, the only thing that I could, think was like, no, why is this happening to us?
Sounds like this dude he's just home from leave for the Army.
Back on Colfax Avenue, investigators know it's going to be a long night.
We got a guy shot in the head, shell casings all over the place where he was standing outside. We really don't have a whole lot to go on.
It was a baffling case to start with. One of the things that struck me was Sergeant Hassel's last act was an act of kindness. He was bringing food to his wife and his child on New Year's Eve. Why did this happen? Who would have done it?
With 3 decades of experience under his belt, Sergeant Lanier senses that the answers to those questions will not come easily.
This could be tough to solve. Yeah, it's gonna be real tough.
What are you doing right now? You gonna go to the hospital? Okay. You a ride, Tyrone? I can make it. I'm heading that way.
Rick Bigger, retired detective lieutenant out of Berrien County Sheriff's Department. When you have a shooting incident, usually there is a lot of people that show up at the hospital. You want to get there as soon as you can to get some witnesses, family members, just to get initial statements.
It was bad. Like the news spread it fast. Everybody was crying and screaming and falling everywhere.
Kamaya Hassel was obviously there when I got there. So she was helpful. She answered the questions. She advised she was at home. They advised that they were both on leave from the U.S. military, staying at the Hassel house for Christmas vacation. That evening on New Year's Eve, family members went to a party. She was left home alone with her infant child. She advised just before 11 o'clock, Tyrone came home, brought her some food, stayed for a brief minute. Tyrone was leaving, going to his vehicle, walking out the door, and she heard several gunshots at that point, at which time she walked outside and found Tyrone laying next to his vehicle.
Breaking right now, a U.S. military member home for the holidays has been found dead after being shot multiple times.
Police say that this happened at the home behind me on Colfax.
The Hassel family home sits on a busy avenue in Benton Harbor, which at the time had the highest violent crime rate in Michigan. But a heartbroken dad wants everyone to know that Sergeant Hassel was much more than a statistic.
Why is it important to you to talk about it? What do you want people to know about this story?
Well, I feel like I owe it to my son. He made me a proud father. He just did everything that he needed to do and was so successful. I feel like I want everybody to know about it. So I won't ever stop talking about it.
And it's tough being good in these communities sometimes.
Yeah, when you come from where we come from, you just don't have a child that succeeds to that level.
It's exceptional.
Definitely.
From the classroom to the locker room at Benton Harbor High School, the story is much the same.
I think that as a freshman, Tyrone knew the direction that he wanted to go. It's a rigorous courses
to be in honors. And I think that he mapped himself out to be an honors student.
What I knew about Tyrone is he was going to show up every day, he was going to show up with a good attitude, and I wasn't going to have to worry about grades or misbehavior or anything like that. Very respectful, willing to do whatever it took. He would play as hard as you needed him to play.
The first week of school, there was somebody in the back of the room talking, and I looked at Tyrone and I asked him to be quiet. It wasn't Tyrone talking, and I didn't know at the time. And 3 days later, he came to my classroom and said, "Can I speak with you after school?" And he said, "I just want you to know that was not me talking. I would never disrespect you while you're talking." And from that moment to this one, I've loved Tyrone.
From there, he moved on to Grand Valley State University, where Hassel earned a scholarship to study mechanical engineering until he decided to switch gears.
I was kind of nervous and a little bit, I should say I was probably scared of my son going to the Army.
You didn't show up too much of that.
No, I couldn't. You know, I'm dad still, so he actually thanked me once for supporting him with his decision.
A decision that would take the sergeant away from Benton Harbor.
Definitely when he moved away, he definitely didn't want to come back. He was motivated to do better. You know, he lived here and he knew it wasn't nothing going on.
One of my other former players called me probably 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's like, "Coach, they killed Tyrone." I had to pause and like, Tyrone who? Although I know there's only one Tyrone I coached, I know that Tyrone isn't involved in any gang activity, drug-related activity, crime-related activity, and he's in the Army and he has a family. So who are you talking about? He responded with Tyrone. And
the initial evidence tells a story, but not a complete one. Here's what investigators have determined so far.
I would guess probably 4 seconds to walk from here to the truck.
He leaves the door, comes down the steps, and boom, he's shot right here.
Yep.
There were, I believe, 5 shell casings laying directly next to him, some of it in pools of blood, which tells us that the shooter was very close. There are drive-bys that occur, but this was not a drive-by. This was up close and personal.
It was just an assassination in his driveway.
What it wasn't was a robbery.
His cell phone, was it inside the truck?
Yes, the cell phone, some other, I think a wallet and some other property were in the truck.
Anything in here? A cell phone and then a black duffel bag.
He had a very nice truck that he was driving. That was still there.
We got a dog here right now. We're on a track. We'll be on the track.
A canine picked up a scent, presumed to be the gunman's scent, between the Hassel home and a neighbor's property.
This is pretty much the path that he took through the grass here.
And the dog ended up about 2 blocks away in a driveway, which indicates from the canine that this is where it stopped. So therefore thinking a vehicle picked him up.
There was one neighbor who heard gunshots and saw a parked car and thought that might be something, but they didn't call the police. Why not?
It seems quite a few people go outside and what we call pop off their guns just to celebrate the New Year's Eve.
There were other people that heard the shooting or heard shots. Kind of have to take that with a grain of salt on New Year's Eve.
But it's clear from the talk of the body camera footage that the celebratory gunfire started long before midnight.
Jeez. There's your automatic gunfire. Happy New Year, right?
Investigators are counting on someone talking, and they find him.
The reason I know all this, I was in my bedroom watching TV and had the shades open. I can see everything that goes on.
The new year begins with a new courtesy of a very observant neighbor.
Hey, Walt, how are you?
Ornery as ever.
Ornery as ever?
Yeah.
We've had a shooting over there, and Frank said you saw a vehicle parked over here?
He parked right in Brown's driveway. The reason I know all this, I was at my bedroom watching TV and I had the shades open. I could see everything that goes on.
About what time was this?
9:30, 10.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, right? First time he was there, and then he left, come back about 15, 20 minutes later. But when he come back, I bet money on it. He was doing 50 miles an hour going up.
50?
At least. And he turned around up there, come back, turned his lights off, backed into the driveway. He stepped out of his car, got back in. A couple of seconds later, he got out again, completely, and started walking. And I watched him, he went and turned left.
They stated that they saw what they thought was a male subject walking down Gerald Street south, which is in the direction of Tyrone Hassel's residence. And then a few minutes later, they see the subject car leaving at a high rate of speed. And it's important simply because where it's parked, where he had to go, is not a very long distance.
How valuable was their information?
Very valuable. I would call it invaluable. You don't get witnesses like that on every case that you work, so it's definitely a great thing to have.
And I just add two and two together. He has something to do with it.
Okay. Did you hear anything?
When I was in bed, yeah.
Okay, what'd you hear?
Gunshots.
The information would explain why the canine lost the scent, but it's also general in nature. No make of the car, no model, no license plate, just a black sedan. Investigators will need more, and the fallen sergeant's father, he's working overtime to provide it.
Tyrone Hassel Jr. has lived in the community his whole life. He knows the people in the community, he knows the streets. Streets talk, and he wants to know what's going on and what they're saying.
I'm showing you the Facebook post that I got that somebody brought to me already.
The first name Tyrone raises to police is someone from his own family, not as the shooter, but as the intended target. You can hear him say the name on the police body camera the night of the murder.
That's the first thing I thought about. Was it one of my... Was it Benny?
Tyrone was going to find who murdered his son. And I sat and explained to him that we got to do it right.
Benny Newman is Tyrone's stepson and lists the Colfax Avenue as his own. He's well known to police. The theory being that Benny stole from the wrong guy who sought revenge, but shot the sergeant by mistake.
Whoever tried to kill or did kill your brother was trying to kill you. I'm here to work a murder, get this thing solved. I told you, if I know anything that can solve my brother's murder case, you think I'm gonna tell you? That's all I'm trying to say. We just want to get to the bottom of it before somebody else gets hurt.
They're confronting Mr. Newman about that, but he denies any involvement in any other acts, denies that he would have been the intended target for this incident, and he denies any knowledge of what took place with Sergeant Hassel.
Turns out Benny Newman has no connection whatsoever with this case, and authorities clear him.
There were a lot of different leads that were coming in, and the police were trying to follow up on all of them.
Yes, the streets are talking, but it's getting police nowhere. In the days following the homicide, investigators have to run down an assortment of leads, tips, and rumors, many of them offering a similar scenario, one that implies that a dirty look or a mean stare was the spark that would later escalate into the shooting. And that was the case here at this local roller rink, where Tyrone liked to skate with his friends.
He just called an old buddy and said, "Hey man, come roller skating with me."
And we'd heard through one of the people that he'd had a beef with somebody at the roller rink.
Everybody was at a loss trying to explain what happened, right? And one of the leads might have been that incident at the roller rink.
Yeah, they said he got into it with somebody. He never got into it with anyone.
No, there was no one else who gave him a dirty look or words exchanged.
I was on the sideline watching them skate. He was just skating. his normal self, happy, smiling, just going around the road, just normal stuff. Nothing abnormal happened.
We talked to the individuals involved. They said there was no beef. I don't know what they're talking about. It might have been a look or something, but Tyrone didn't have any problems with anybody.
It's mid-afternoon on New Year's Eve, and a surveillance camera picks up Sergeant Hassel at this local Walmart. It's the last time he's seen in public, and he's with two unknown individuals. You can see Sergeant Hassel over by the counter in the white cap.
When he was there, two people approached him at the counter in the sporting goods department. There was a brief interaction with that. Well, the police saw that, got that video, and need to track those people down.
He was actually seen with two individuals walking through Walmart, talking to these individuals as if he knew them. We were able to determine who they were.
And it turned out to be a father and a son, and the son had been friends with Tyrone, grew up with him, known him basically all his life. And the interaction turned out to be completely innocent, dead end, but you still got to run through all the scenarios and keep investigating.
On a cold January evening, the streets talk again. This time, the message is short and direct. A week after the shooting, family members hold a vigil here on the Hassel's front lawn. It was at that event that a man comes up to Tyrone and says, "I know who killed your son."
Priority call in St. Joe Township. Wife advising her husband has been shot.
See, bro, you know what I tell him? Ain't no more going, bro. Ain't no more going, bro.
The family wants to find the person responsible for a New Year's Eve shooting that left a 23-year-old active military member dead.
No. We gotta figure out what happened. We really want to know why.
Tonight, a vigil was held for Tyrone, and a GoFundMe was started.
In the days following the shooting, mourners attend a vigil at the Hassel family home, and someone in attendance approaches Tyrone Hassel and says the alleged shooter in his son's case is the same man involved in a separate shooting that same night.
The second shooting happened about 30 minutes ago on Apple Avenue in Benton Harbor.
On New Year's Eve, there was another shooting, 10-15 minutes away, on Apple Street. There was a suspect developed with that shooting. So they tried to follow up on that suspect.
We had to look at that initially, of course, to see we had a shooting here, now we got another shooting here. Is this retaliatory?
Both shootings involved a 9mm handgun. A crime lab will tell investigators all they need to know.
It turned out through investigation that it wasn't associated. The evidence didn't link it up. Spent shell casings from the Apple shooting scene and spent shell casings from Sergeant Hassel's shooting scene did not match up, so we knew it was not the same gun that fired these bullets.
Investigators have been spinning their wheels for days now, and frustration is growing.
Now time is ticking, and the longer an investigation goes on, it becomes increasingly difficult to find out who did it and why they did it. So now we're progressing into day 4, day 5, day 6, and we're still following up on every lead that comes in, always coming up empty-handed.
It was definitely frustrating having these leads just go nowhere, going back to square one and almost having to start over the entire investigation just to, try to retrace another lead that seemed to be going to another dead end at that time. So it was getting to me.
Every tip that we received came to really a dead end, and of course you're going to go through every lead you can find.
His mother and father are still wanting justice for him and wanting to know what happened. His wife wanting to know what's going on, telling Tyrone Hassel II as she's living in his house, we need to find out who the murderer was. We need to solve this.
Kamaya Hassel remains in town as funeral arrangements are finalized.
Was she making plans for the funeral?
Yeah, definitely. I've been to the funeral home with her. We went to the church together. We planned the entire funeral. Picked out the pictures that would be playing, at the repast. She was following through with it all.
And then eventually planning to go back to the military base?
Yes, and she wanted to have him cremated. and she had her urn picked out. She wanted them to cremate him immediately after the funeral so she could take his ashes back.
Until then, the grieving widow sits in solitude in the very same house where the murder occurred.
Most of the day, she would just sit on the couch and wouldn't move, wouldn't go nowhere.
The distraught parents of Sergeant Hassel split their time grieving the loss of their son and comforting their daughter-in-law.
You know, every day, I would try to console her. I would try to make sure she ate, make sure she tried to get some sleep, try to make sure she did the proper things that she did to take care of herself so she wouldn't have a nervous breakdown. This is what I was feeling. At that point, I think I turned into a father to her instead of, and I had to be strong for my family.
Kamaya finds comfort on social media, posting, "I wish I was dreaming, man. I'm trying not to blame myself." And about Tyrone, she posts, "My baby loved me. I owe you another baby. We needed a girl." On day 11 of the investigation, cops finally catch a break as that curious black car is spotted once again.
Sergeant Hassel was shot multiple times, 2 times in the head, 1 time in the neck, and then 1 time in the right arm. It appeared all at fairly close range.
If it's up close and personal like that, it usually means that the problem is up close and personal.
But nothing added up. There was no motive that we could find locally. I was in close contact with Tyrone Jr. I had contact with Kamaya every day. She'd call.
By all accounts, she was doing a very good job in the Army and working her way up. She was a specialist Kamaya Hassel.
Kamaya Martin grew up in Georgia. A member of the junior ROTC in high school, she made a name for herself as an outstanding young cadet, and she won several awards. Junior Cadet of the Month, Cadet of the Year, leadership awards like Unit Commander. In 2015, while at Fort Carson in Colorado, Kamaya met Tyrone Hassel.
I was there when Kamaya and Ty first met. Ty was a gentleman, charming, smart, and she liked him a lot. After probably like 3 or 4 months, I think it was serious.
How did you hear about his relationship with Kamaya?
When I heard of his relationship with Kamaya, he was getting engaged.
Not even a girlfriend?
Not a girlfriend. When he told me he was getting married, I was like, is you getting married for money in the military, or you getting married because you love her?
You say for the money. What do you mean?
Because in the military, I believe that you get more money when you're married. He was like, no, Dad, I really love her.
Then you finally meet Kamaya, and what did you think of her?
It was like I really known her all my life. She walked in, "Hey, Dad," called me Dad right off the bat.
So you gained a daughter-in-law, and then very quickly, you're a grandfather.
Yep, I gained a daughter-in-law, and then next thing you know, boom, the baby bump. She was pregnant. It was my son's first child, and he was happy about it, so when he was happy, I was happy.
When I first met Kamaya, she was a sweet girl, real nice. The military is very hard. So when you find some friends, you kind of want to build your own community and stuff and get to know each other.
Delina and her husband, former Sergeant Mark Burks, became fast friends with the Hassels. Mark remembers a sweet moment between Tyrone and Kamaya when they all watched the Super Bowl together in 2018.
4-man rush. Full spiders caught. He had his arm around her and he was like kissing her on the cheek, and my wife was like, "Oh," she's like, "Why you don't do me like that?"
I was like, "Oh, he's so cute. Look at him." And Mark was just like, "Oh, that's just that young love. They just gonna get over that." Yeah, he was in love with her. He was hugging up on her like, "This my baby."
It's now been a week since the murder, and none of the leads have panned out. So police asked Kamaya to come in for another interview.
When you're a week separated from the event, your adrenaline has come down slightly, and you might remember some things that you didn't remember on the scene.
This is the never-before-seen interview obtained exclusively by 2020.
Okay, what he's going to ask you is your phone, so we can download the phone. We have to eliminate you to move on, you know what I mean? So we can focus on other things.
We're still just piecing together because it was really a mystery at that time. We obviously are struggling with some leads right now. We don't have a whole lot going on, so we're trying to still piece it together.
She was questioned by Detective Easton and Detective Peak.
Does he ever cheat on you? You guys ever?
Well, we were dating, but not while we were married.
You're not a jealous person. You're not like, hey, were you out fooling around or anything? I mean, you give him any kind of grief about it?
We never had those issues.
Okay. We're really just there to get her timeline. What happened and when? What happens Monday?
Monday is New Year's Eve.
Yeah. They kind of had their own thing going on, even though it was New Year's Eve.
Kamaya had stayed behind with their baby, while Tyrone went to his family's New Year's Eve party.
I wasn't really upset about it because I knew that he was going to be with his family.
Yeah. She did say that she was a homebody. You know, it's not my thing. I'd rather just sit at home. And then he brought food home for you.
Yeah, he brought food.
The detective then asked Kamaya how she felt about Tyrone's parents.
Oh, they're nice. I always enjoy them. They're really nice people.
When Kamaya and Tyrone were overseas in South Korea, his parents took care of their baby.
They watched our son. Well, took care of our son the whole time.
Yeah.
So they had our baby and the dog.
That's really nice of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you love them. I mean, you consider them like your parents are.
Yeah.
She's cordial. I mean, she's not crazy outgoing, but she was very nice. Does she have life insurance?
Yeah, we all do.
Okay, yeah, that comes standard or whatever, right? Yeah. What does he get?
The extra of the amount is $400,000.
One of the benefits for your survivors is if you were to be killed in any way, your survivors would get this benefit of the life insurance. Even though he wasn't in combat or anything, I mean, you still get the $400,000 because he was.
That's what they were saying.
That's a good base for your life, and you can set up a maybe college fund for your kid and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know until I get there. I'd rather have him than
for sure.
Some shit.
Yeah.
At this point, Kamaya's bank statement shows that she had already received $100,000 in death benefits. That money is in addition to Tyrone's life insurance that she stands to receive.
Can I see your phone for a second? Do you mind if I run your phone real fast just to see just to track to make sure the messages are all the same?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll be right back.
So you have no idea who would have done this, and you were not involved in any way whatsoever.
And it just happened so fast. And I saw that he was laid out there by his truck. And I went out there, I'm shaking him, I'm like, babe, get up, get up. And he's not talking, not responding to anything. That's when I ran back in the house and got my phone call 911.
We walked out of the room, we were probably like, she was kind of like emotionless. Who knows, maybe she's been crying for 7.5 days and she just has no more tears at that point.
In the meantime, St. Joseph's Police Department went door to door looking for surveillance footage recorded the night of the murder. There was none to be found except this one. That security camera here at Enterprise Car Rental provides investigators with a critical piece of information. It captures Sergeant Hassel's pickup truck as he makes his way to Kamaya to deliver that food from the party. It's that same camera that later captures a black Chevy sedan traveling in the opposite direction.
Fairly rapidly, driving a little bit erratically, definitely in a suspicious manner. Prior to that, we had received information from a neighbor that observed that vehicle in the driveway.
Did you see what kind of vehicle it was?
It was a black car that had the lights in the front,
Which also contributed to us believing that that was the suspect vehicle on video fleeing the scene.
So who was in that car? The license plate was not visible in the video. But the investigation takes a dramatic turn.
A week and a half after the murder, a tip comes into St. Joe Township Police Department.
It was an anonymous phone call from a woman.
It sounded like she was near the military base.
You guys should look at the wife.
She basically told us we need to look at Kamaya.
U.S. military member home for the holidays has been found dead after being shot multiple times.
Do you have any idea what happened here?
We don't have them anymore. We don't have one of our kids.
A grown-up kid who was now a husband and father.
Son, this Tyrone Hassel III.
This is all the Tyrones.
Yeah.
4 generations. Yeah.
This was a planned execution. It was just when and where.
And then I just heard gunshots.
He said it's done.
What the hell just happened here?
That tip led to the arrest and the murder of Tyrone Hassel III.
And he was like, we found your son's killer.
Wow.
What do you mean?
And now everyone at the funeral is finding out.
At the funeral.
And he was like, oh, you don't know, huh? And I was like, wait, huh?
Might have got away with this murder.
I'm gonna just tell you my side.
What did he say?
I didn't believe it. My wife almost passed out. The whole house just went crazy.
"23-year-old Tyrone Hassel III was an outstanding young sergeant with a bright future. He had been gunned down in cold blood while his wife, Kamaya, and young son were nearby.
He was doing so good. He was a very likable person. I didn't know of him to ever have any enemies.
How on earth did this happen? No one has an ill feeling towards Tyrone. I can't imagine this is something that happened because of something he did.
He was so young. And he dead. For what reason, really?
There seemed to be no motive for the killing until 11 days after the murder, when police received an anonymous call with a shocking tip.
One of our officers received a phone call from an anonymous person in Georgia, stating that it was a female caller, spoke with a heavy Jamaican accent.
I have a military son, and I had a conversation with him a few nights ago, and he was very distressed about the situation. You guys should look at the wife.
She didn't really elaborate too much, but she did kind of hint that there was a relationship that Kamaya was involved in that may have led to something like this.
The relationship with the guy and the girl is the same platoon.
The tip essentially said Kamaya was having an affair with a man in the Army in her platoon unit down in Georgia at Fort Stewart.
Fort Stewart is the largest military installation on the eastern seaboard. Their primary mission is to train the 3rd Infantry Division for any deployments anywhere in the world.
And it's at that base in Georgia where Specialist Kamaya Hassel worked as a truck driver and where Sergeant Hassel was a wheel mechanic. The very same day that police in Michigan got that anonymous call, there was another stunning development in the case, this time at Fort Stewart.
2 soldiers went to their chaplain with fear of another service member.
His name is Jeremy Cuellar.
The 2 individuals had known about the affair that Kamaya Hassel was having with Jeremy Cuellar. The soldiers were concerned for their own safety after Cuellar was becoming more and more anxious.
With this information, Army CID, the Army's Criminal Investigation Division, launches their own probe into the murder of Sergeant Hassel.
Kamaya became very friendly with Specialist Jeremy Cuellar, and that evolved into an affair. And it was seen by their friend group. They knew it was going on.
Some of those friends are interviewed by Army investigators at the base.
I see them together and mess around, and it was like,
So when you say messing around, what are you getting at with that? Because obviously, everybody's got different.
Oh, yeah, sexually.
Okay.
Jeremy Cuellar was in the same platoon as Kamaya Hassel.
Kamaya and Jeremy drove trucks for the military, so they worked together fairly closely.
Cuellar stated that Kamaya Hassel was his girl and that Sergeant Hassel had to go.
Jeremy Cuellar was from Chicago. He was married.
Jeremy is my ex-husband. We met in high school. He was eye candy for me, at least. He was fine. Like, he was cute. And the way he was charming. Very charming.
We had learned that Jeremy Cuellar had a very short temper, was never in a good mood.
He was known by some of the people in his platoon to have a little bit of an anger issue.
Our relationship was rocky. He was cheating on me. I seen women in his phone. I went through his phone, and that's when I seen, like, him conversating with women. And I'd seen her name on there, Kamaya. And I didn't think of anything because I seen multiple women. It wasn't just her. It was sexual conversations.
Army CID talked with Sergeant Tadarius Golston. He was also in Georgia at Fort Stewart. Sergeant Golston had some firearms that he was looking to sell, and he sold 2 of them to Jeremy Cuellar.
I sold him firearms. Okay. What firearms did you sell? I sold him a Ruger SR90. It's a 9mm.
After talking with another soldier, Army CID learns that Jeremy Cuellar had allegedly described how he says he killed Sergeant Hassel.
He's bragging. He's telling his best buddy on base what he did. After he'd shot him, he went up, stood over him, and put one in his head to confirm the kill. One of the shots was directly in the forehead.
Jeremy Cuellar is immediately put under surveillance at his home near the base. In his driveway is a black car that looks very similar to the car caught on security camera the night of Sergeant Hassel's murder.
It was a black Chevy Impala, and we had conducted a search of the vehicle and discovered 9mm ammunition and another 9mm magazine. It was believed to be a 9mm pistol that was used in the murder of Sergeant Hassel. The license plate number was provided to the St. Joseph Township Police Department.
We ran that through our license plate readers, and we were able to pick up that he was in Michigan, in the area of the murder, within a few hours of the murder.
Just 7 hours after Army CID started their investigation, Jeremy Cuellar is arrested.
And he's detained at the Liberty County Jail.
The Army's Criminal Investigation Command is a special agent and wanted to question you about the following offenses in which you are suspected or accused, and it's homicide and conspiracy. Do you understand those?
Jeremy Cuellar invokes his right to remain silent and doesn't speak anymore.
Back in Michigan, police want to talk to Kamaya about this man, Jeremy Cuellar.
Do you know a guy by the name of Jeremy Cuellar?
Cuellar, yeah, I know Jeremy.
Once we got the information from the U.S. military, it was go mode. You and Jeremy were romantically involved. He flat out says that.
No, we were not. There's a possibility that he has a crush on me. Anybody can have a crush on me. I'm not dealing with anyone to where that they would want to do something to my husband.
Jeremy Cuellar is now in custody in Georgia. Investigators confirmed that Kamaya Hassel's lover was in Michigan the night of Sergeant Hassel's murder.
He'd been up here 3 or 4 times, and each time he wasn't able to commit the homicide because either Sergeant Hassel had somebody with him or just wasn't the right opportunity. The Barron County Sheriff's Department did a lot of the forensics on the phones and was able to put a timeline together for us showing his coming and goings into Michigan. This is actually some property that was recovered in our suspect Jeremy Cuellar's house in Georgia. There is a receipt here from the Illinois Toll Plaza putting Jeremy Cuellar's vehicle coming into town. So it kind of ties together with his car traveling into Michigan as well with the toll receipt.
But that security footage we see of Sergeant Hassel at the Walmart that day, The killer had been nearby,
Yes, according to the plate scanner, it put his vehicle within a mile of the Walmart.
Now, investigators in Michigan are especially eager to interview Kamaya again, this time about her affair with Jeremy Cuellar. Police reach out to Tyrone's father.
I got a call from Officer Peppers, and he was like, Tyrone, something just came up.
I told him I need you to bring Kamaya to the sheriff's department. And I couldn't really give him much more information than that because of where we were headed with the investigation.
I just told Kamaya, I was like, we got to go to the sheriff's department.
On the way there, did she seem nervous?
She asked me, she was like, I wonder why we're going back over here today. Lieutenant Bigger was holding the door open, and we walked in, and he was like, Mr. Hassel, take a seat right here. Kamaya, you go this way. So they separated us immediately.
They didn't explain anything to you?
They didn't say anything. He just said, it's going to be a long night. I walked out the door of the sheriff's department, and I just kind of stood there for a minute, and I'm like, what in the world had just happened?
We took her up to the sheriff's department interview room.
We got a couple questions for you.
Myself and Detective Lieutenant Bigger conducted the interview.
You have the right to talk to your lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned.
She's read her rights. She was willing to talk to us right away without hesitation.
This video obtained exclusively by 2020.
If you give up the right to remain silent and later wish to stop answering questions, no further questions will be asked. Understand that? Okay.
This is the first time I've heard that.
Oh, I didn't do it before? We kind of do all that.
We basically, right off the bat, asked her who Jeremy Cuellar is.
Do you know a guy by the name of Jeremy Cuellar?
Cuellar, yeah, I know Jeremy.
Who is he?
I work with him.
She originally stated he's just a subject she works with on base. And then we asked her a few times, what's your relationship?
Are you guys friends, romantically involved?
No, we're friends. We're not romantically.
And after about the third or fourth time we asked her about Jeremy Cuellar, she made a statement which was very odd. What's up with that? She wants to know why we're asking about Jeremy Cuellar.
We've got Jeremy talking down there.
Where?
Fort Stewart. Officers are down there with him right now. We know what happened. We want your side of the story.
Side of the story for what?
What happened to Tyrone?
What do you mean? What is he saying?
We went on to inform her that we have information from the military base in Fort Stewart of what had happened.
We've got a lot of people coming forward down in Fort Stewart.
And what are they saying?
Stuff that Jeremy told them.
In hopes of getting Kamaya to crack, the detectives lie, which they are legally allowed to do. They say Jeremy is telling everything to Army investigators.
And at this point in time, do you wish to have a lawyer?
When in fact, he's not talking at all.
Jeremy's cooperating at the other end, okay? We want to know your involvement of Tyrone's death.
I don't have any involvement in my husband's death.
She wouldn't admit to it? You could see her just trying to think of something.
At that point, she never really gave up the full relationship, knowing that she had talked to him.
But let's be honest, you and Jeremy were romantically involved. He flat out says that.
No, we were not. It's a possibility I'm pregnant right now. With my husband.
Well, I'm not. Well, that doesn't. I mean, just because you.
But you want to know something?
Why is Jeremy? You tell me why he's telling people that he's.
I do not know why he's telling anybody. I've never been romantically involved. I've never cheated on my husband.
I confronted her with everything that was going on. She still denied it.
Now, if there's a possibility that he has a crush on me, anybody can have a crush on me. I'm not dealing with anyone to where that they would want to do something to my husband.
Okay, back in a minute. Let's see how Jeremy's doing over there. So I walked out, gave it through thought, and I said, let's try a polygraph.
We did ask her if she'd be willing to take a polygraph. She stated she would, and that she wanted to take it to clear her name.
I don't really have a choice.
I appreciate it.
What are my other options? Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a choice, and I don't want this going any further with me being attached to it.
You know, time was going on, so I called Officer Peppers it was like midnight. I said, man, can somebody tell me what's going on? My son's funeral is tomorrow, and Kamaya's there, nobody telling me what's going on. He said, I don't know, I'll call you back.
What Tyrone didn't know was that Officer Peppers and Sergeant Lanier were on a 2-hour drive to the Michigan State Police headquarters so that Kamaya could take a lie detector test.
When we got there, Lieutenant Gusky took over. He got her basically to feel relaxed and to befriend her.
I'm in your corner 110%. I'm not bailing. But the one thing I'm not a guy that's going to beat around the bush and go halfway.
He flat out confronted her with new information.
Something's going to happen, you understand?
I remember looking at Officer Peppers just kind of like, what the hell just happened here?
I didn't believe it. My wife almost passed out. The whole house just went crazy.
Is there anything else we need to tell you?
Just hours after Jeremy Cuellar had been arrested for the murder of Sergeant Tyrone Hassel, Kamaya Hassel is waiting to take a lie detector test. This is her 7th recorded interview with police.
Why do I take this test today?
Because I want to clear my name. I want people to know that this situation is not tied to me at all. I love my husband. I wouldn't do anything. If I could, I would do everything in my power to have him back.
Detective Lunguski administers his test, and after it was done, he simply went to Kamaya and said, look, I know you're lying.
I'm in your corner 110%. I'm not bailing.
He got her basically to feel relaxed and to befriend her, and Kamaya eventually gave a play-by-play of what happened.
Korea first, like, we weren't sexual or anything, but we were really close.
But you are now.
We're really close.
You guys were probably sexual somewhere throughout all that shit happened.
Not even just sexually. It's just, I just was feeling so bad, like, with Todd. And it's just like he was just there, like, listening and everything.
She goes on to blame Sergeant Hassel as the reason for her searching out Jeremy, saying that he didn't pay enough attention to me. He didn't give me what I needed.
So many times where I've dealt with the majority than Todd. Like, I can count on my finger how many times he's given him a bath. I've worked the same amount of hours that he worked, and I still have to come home and do everything for the baby.
As we started to talk, it started to kind of unfold what her role actually was in this, and as it unfolded, she wound up being one of the coldest people I run into in my career.
How do you text him that you're calling him back with the food?
I told him that he was bringing us back food.
He's bringing back the food.
And he was just like, never mind, we'll just try another day. And then I said, well, he's about to bring us something to eat.
Were you pretty adamant with him? I mean, what was the message going to show you? Okay,
yeah, I was like, hey, hurry up, he's on the way back.
12 days after her husband's murder, Kamaya finally comes clean.
You know, you said you feel about as responsible as Jeremy is. I mean, would you say this is a 50-50 you guys were on this?
Yeah. Okay. I know all about it. I probably could have stopped it, but the reason I didn't, because I felt like he would, be mad at me.
I don't love you anymore.
Yeah. And I just felt like I wasn't getting that love at home like I wanted to.
Is there anything else we need to tell?
We were sexual.
That you were sexual? Okay. I just want to go through this with you. I gotta read it.
Kamaya Hassel signs a document admitting her involvement in the murder.
I said, did you plan with Jeremy to kill Tyrone? You said,
yes.
Was the money part of the reason for the murder?
After all of our experiences with Kamaya throughout the investigation, it was definitely shocking to hear her confess. She'd been sitting on that information the whole time.
I'm glad to hear that.
She was arrested on the early morning hours, or 12th it was. Actually, it was the day of the funeral. She was actually locked up.
I heard 3 car doors shut. So I was like, okay, there's probably 2 officers in Kamaya. When I opened the door, it was 3 officers, no Kamaya. And he told me to come outside on the porch. So I'm like, no, what's going on? And then he was like, we found your son's killer. And I'm like, ooh, and he said it was Kamaya. You know, I was still in shock. I didn't believe it. My wife almost passed out.
You just couldn't believe it?
No, I couldn't believe it. I was kind of angry because I sat there with you and we catered to you for 12 days, even though we were the ones that were really hurt. We catered to your needs.
Was there ever a time when you thought that she might have been responsible?
I couldn't see it. Not at all. Not even a slight chance.
It's amazing how sometimes we just don't know a person.
If it was a movie, she'd have won an Oscar. Definitely. And I found out somebody who I thought I knew, I found out I really didn't know at all.
Sergeant Hassel's obituary had already been published. It said he leaves to cherish his memory his loving wife, Kamaya Hassel.
They asked me that day if I wanted to stop the service, but that was not an option. You know, it had already been 12 days now that he hasn't been buried, you know, and we needed to get it going.
And now everyone at the funeral is finding out.
At the funeral, as the service was going on, you can see people start to whisper to each other and phones coming out.
While we were in the funeral, our phones was just blowing up. Everybody, you know, we kindly declined the calls. As we were leaving, one of Tyrone's uncles, he was like, was y'all real close? I was like, yeah, man, that was like my brother. He's like, I could tell. And then I was like, I just feel bad for Kamaya. And he was like, oh, you don't know, huh? I was like, no, what? He was like, yeah, they came and picked up Kamaya this morning. I was like, wait, huh? She set it up. I didn't want to believe it.
Jeremy Cuellar and Kamaya Hassel are both in jail, awaiting trial for the first-degree murder of Sergeant Tyrone Hassel. And Kamaya makes a revealing phone call to her mother.
I'm in the jail. Why are you in jail?
We're following breaking news out of Berrien County this morning. Police say a tip led to the arrest of 2 suspects in the murder of Tyrone Hassel III.
News broke just hours before Hassel's family and friends gathered for his funeral.
Everybody is in the church whispering amongst each other because it came up on the news break that Jeremy and Kamaya was arrested.
She is booked in at the Berrien County Jail, and she immediately calls her mom.
Hello, this is a call from an inmate at the Berrien County Jail. So, Kamaya, when did all this come about? It was planned in Korea. I got myself mixed up in something I didn't think would be like this. Pretty much. I can't hear you. We planned it. Y'all planned it? Yeah. Kamaya, I don't believe that. Is somebody making you say that? Somebody made me plan it. He was forcing me, and I don't know. Who was forcing you, Kamaya? His name is Quay. Why was Quay forcing you? Because he wanted to be with me so that we could be together.
Her mom expressed her extreme disappointment in her child at that time.
Why y'all just wake up? He wasn't letting me, and I was scared to tell anybody about what was going on. You know scared too. You talk to me all the time. You could have told me.
It was our lead story many days. A U.S. Army soldier is now on trial in the New Year's Eve murder of her own husband in Berrien County. And people were so stunned by what that young woman was capable of that people wanted to hear what really happened.
If Sergeant Hassel was killed, she'd get that money. And a lot of it.
This was a strong case. I want everything out for that jury right away, and I want them convinced. An opening statement.
You will find that he was the victim of a planned killing. Conceived months before. The woman responsible for that killing is seated right there. The defendant. You'll find she had murder on her mind and betrayal in her heart.
So this whole plan of Kamaya and Cuellar wasn't out of the heat of the moment. This was a planned execution. It was just when and where.
At times, Jeremy Cuellar said, look, it's not working out tonight. We'll do it another time. And the defendant said, no, we got to get it done tonight.
She was using Snapchat to tell Jeremy Cuellar where Sergeant Hassel was, when he was leaving the house, when he was coming back, when he was in his vehicle, and that's how they planned it.
We went through her cell phone, and one of the Google searches was how to delete Snapchat from your cell phone, and Snapchat was not on her phone. So obviously she'd eliminated an application from her phone to evade that data.
Cell phone records also show that Sergeant Hassel texted his wife at 10:48 p.m.
It said, just wrap y'all food up, about to be on the way.
Then, 4 minutes later, she's on the phone with Jeremy Cuellar.
And she let Cuellar know at that time, hey, you can't leave. He's coming to bring me food. This is the time.
Steve Perangeli, the prosecutor, did his best to try and create Kamaya this image as though she was some mastermind criminal. Kamaya, I think, unfortunately, hitched her wagon to a very dangerous individual and allowed herself to follow his lead.
Jeremy Cuellar is directly, no question about it, responsible for Tyrone Hassel's death. But just because he's responsible does not mean Kamaya Hassel's involved. This is Mr. Cuellar's plan. This is his idea.
Kamaya's defense attorney also argued that she was manipulated into a confession by the police.
You're a victim in this. You were still under his control. He's been working you since Korea.
I knew it for a fact that he'd manipulated her. When I cross-examined him, I asked him, I said, you knew what buttons to push. You were looking to get her to tell you what you wanted to hear.
And one of the things that you're allowed to do when you're interviewing someone is you're allowed to make things up. Is that right?
That is correct.
You're allowed to lie to a subject to see what they will say in response to your lie. Is that right?
That is correct.
They tried to play Detective Lunguski as an expert who manipulated her and fed her the evidence that she regurgitated to him.
Isn't that a huge step to kill your husband just to be with another guy?
But when you broke down his interview with her, she would always give out the evidence first.
You hereby solemnly swear or...
Multiple people take the stand, including Tyrone's father, friends, and first responders. But the prosecution believed the star witness was Army Specialist Jaquan Hamilton.
Sir, if you would, for the record, state your full name and spell your last, please.
Who was friends with Jeremy and Kamaya. Jaquan says that Jeremy told him about his plan to kill Tyrone.
He basically explained, but he has to go. Like, he has to get it done. He has to get rid of him.
The defense went after Jaquan, who initially did not report Jeremy's plan because he didn't think he was serious.
If you had reported this, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Is that fair?
Yes.
When Jeremy Cuellar went back to Georgia, he made statements to Jaquan Hamilton about killing Sergeant Hassel.
When he first approached you, what did he say?
He said it's done. I had to do what I had to do.
Did he give you talk any further about it?
He was going into detail, basically saying how he pulled him coming out the house and shot him in the head, and then he dropped him and then shot him again.
When you asked him whether or not Kamaya Hassel was involved in the planning of the murder of her husband, what did he say?
He said it's mutual, like it has to be done.
It was Jeremy Cuellar's own mouth that got them caught. If he had not bragged about what was going on to other soldiers at the base down in Georgia, they might have got away with this murder.
The defense didn't call any witnesses.
The amount of evidence that was against Kamaya was considerable, certainly not the least of which was her statements to Detective Longuski and also her statements that were recorded in the conversation with her mother.
There's no cross-examine that could really be done on those phone calls. And that was the last piece of evidence they got to hear before I rested my case.
A jury deliberated for 1 hour and 8 minutes to find Kamaya Hassel guilty in the murder of her husband, Army Staff Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III.
Guilty of first degree premeditated murder as aider or better. Guilty of conspiracy to commit first degree premeditated murder.
Kamaya had no real reaction in court.
She didn't look our way. She was not emotional.
There's no doubt in my mind that had Kamaya never met Jeremy Cuellar, this never would have happened. I think Jeremy had convinced her that this was the way to go. This was, her only route towards happiness.
She had everything that she could have wanted. Car, a family, a house, a career. And she let it all go for some insurance money.
He was something to everybody he met, but to you, he was expendable. He was a check. A $400,000 check.
So now it's Jeremy's turn to have his day in court.
And I was like, this dude is sick.
And he has a surprise encounter with Sergeant Hassel's father.
I'm gonna just tell you my side, but you do deserve that.
Kamaya Hassel was sentenced today to life in prison without parole for helping her boyfriend kill her husband Tyrone Hassel III.
Cuellar took a plea of second-degree murder, so he didn't even want to take it to trial.
Jeremy Cuellar was sentenced today to 65 to 90 years in prison.
We made that plea bargain after talking with the family. We believe that 65 years was enough.
I seen all the information they were saying in court. That was my first time even hearing the information. And I had this pit in my stomach. I was so disgusted.
There's no question that the guy was pretty unhinged. I mean, he told a friend of his that he was planning a murder, and then he told the same friend that he had committed this murder.
He would cry on the phone and I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just sorry you got caught. Because if you didn't get caught, you probably would be living your damn best life right now.
In contrast to Kamaya, Jeremy Cuellar did show some emotion as he was sentenced and as he was listening to Tyrone's mother speak in court.
You did all of this for money and my son's spot. You could have had his house, his wife, and help raise his son, but you could never be him. He was better than you, and he still is. Because the kind of person that he was, his name will live on.
I apologize to the family again. Sincerely. I was a fool for just taking her words and not really looking to see who he was. I just had issues with my own demons.
After we took his plea agreement, while he was walking out of court, he told Tyrone Hassel Jr., I want to talk with you. I need to talk with you.
I was in the hallway and he was trying to say something. I said, I want to know what he was trying to say. And Lieutenant Bigger heard me.
I did speak with Tyrone and said, he's reaching out. He wants to talk to you.
I spoke with his attorney, and his attorney said, that's fine. You can set it up. Everything will be recorded. And it was just going to be a standard jail visit.
But the visit is not what it looks like on the video. I couldn't see him across from me. I was looking at a monitor, and he was looking at a monitor. He was in a different location.
How you doing, sir?
I'm all right. you know, under the circumstances.
Honestly, I'm very sorry. You know, I know that is not even enough. You know, I'm gonna just tell you my side. You know, I know. Regardless, you know, but you do deserve that. And to be honest with you, it's sad, but you know, you deserve that.
What did he say?
He said a lot more than I really wanted to hear. As far as like his relationship with Kamaya and stuff, I didn't come to, you know, really listen to that, but I did because I didn't want him to shut down on me.
I'm being real with you. Like, I'm truly sorry. I thought I loved her. You know what I'm saying? I was all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason, I thought Kamaya was like my light. You know what I'm saying?
You could see the anger. You could see the disgust in Tyrone Hassel Jr.'s eyes.
He was pretty graphic in his description, what he did. Yeah, and he told me how many times he came to kill my son.
It honestly took me like 6 times, sir. At least 6 times. I'm being completely honest with you. The first time I choked.
And I knew from what he was saying and him describing my house that, you know, it was real. He had been there before. He had been there before. I do remember him saying he was hiding behind the garbage cans one day.
You know the 2 garbage cans you have right there by your patio? I was waiting right there, and he had came out. Look, I choked many times. You know what I mean? My mind was twisted. I thought I had to do that in order for me to have a family with her because I wanted kids.
Jeremy Cuellar didn't hold back. He spilled everything, how it was planned, how he executed his son in his driveway.
That's when she was like, oh, he's coming back. And I was like, you really just want me to do this? So I was like, man, I came back. And that's when it happened.
He definitely owned up to his part of all of it. I think he wanted to give closure to Tyrone of everything that happened, so there wasn't questions. Maybe that's in his mind.
And for the heartbroken father to sit there and listen when he knew the truth and what had happened, that took strength that I don't think most people could muster.
I wanted any information that I could get out of him. And I wanted to know how much involvement she had in it. When he got shot, did she come out? Did she really, she acted so concerned? I was just wondering if she talked to you about that afterwards.
Yeah, she did. Matter of fact, she did. She was like, yeah, he died in my arms. And she was saying she was sad about it. And I'm like, then why'd you have me do it then?
Do you think Kamaya was the mastermind of this crime? I know she was a mastermind. And I realized that he was just as sick as she was. For him to think that after they did what they did, that they could just have a happy ever after life.
I hope and pray that within himself and his soul that he knows what he did was wrong and he accepts it and he gotta roll with the punches in it. You gotta deal with it.
But just months after talking to Tyrone Hassel, Jeremy shocks everybody again. This time, he's taking it all back.
Jeremy Cuellar, the man who previously pleaded guilty to the murder of Tyrone Hassel III, now hoping to withdraw that plea.
Withdrawing is kind of like a slap in the face, and it makes you wonder, what is this guy thinking? Some of your favorites?
Oh, that one.
This is all the Tyrones.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 generations. Yeah. That's his son. That's Chuck. That's one of my favorite pictures right there.
We don't have him anymore. we don't have one of our kids. Because you know, when you look at pictures of, you know, them when they're babies or whatever, usually they're still here. I feel like, man, this is the only thing we have left is pictures.
Just months after speaking with Tyrone's father, Jeremy Cuellar tried to withdraw his guilty plea, but the judge upheld it.
How often do you think of Tyrone?
All the time, every day, especially when I have to work with his daddy. His laugh is just the same. It sounds like I'm standing next to him again.
How do you want the world to remember your buddy?
He has a very nice, charismatic guy that loved his family and loved the people he grew up with.
And what about Kamaya and Tyrone's son, Tyrone Hassel IV, nicknamed Chunk? Well, he currently lives with Kamaya's mother. The Hassel family gets to see him over FaceTime.
What message do you have for your grandson?
I got a lot of things to talk to him about. I would like him to know that his father was a good man and his father loved him very dearly.
I would tell Chunk that his dad was remarkable, and all he ever wanted was for Chunk to be better than remarkable. All Tyrone Hassel III wanted to do was lay the foundation for his son, Tyrone Hassel IV. That's legacy.
He wore number 1. So the first home game of every year since his tragic passing, we called Fly High Tie Day and dedicated to him. Have his parents come out, put up a banner, throw the first pitch.
Sergeant Hassel wanted so much to give back to this community. And the hardest part is we'll never know what Sergeant Hassel could have done.
Specialist Tyrone Hassel, 4th Michigan Time.
Yeah! The time that he was with us, he was successful. And he was living his dream. He was doing what he wanted to do. And he was happy.
Kamaya Hassel still has an appeal pending. We reached out to her for comment, but she has not responded.
And as for the $100,000 in insurance money that Kamaya already was paid, the military was able to get it back. It's now in a trust for the couple's son. That is our program for tonight. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.